Star Wars Acolyte is setting itself up in a very different timeline. But will there be some familiar faces? Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. We're almost certain that Star Wars Acolyte is going to be launching this summer. We've seen reports from Bespin Bulletin for over a year now, or about a year from this time frame. And we've now seen some other reports that are supporting this idea that summer will be the Star Wars Acolyte time period. As the hype train gets into station, I want to talk about Star Wars Acolyte and its potential for cameos. This is a very interesting time frame when we look at it because it is new to many fans. Yes, we've seen the High Republic for years now, and it's definitely fleshed out in the books and the comics, and a little bit in the video games if you look at like Jedi Survivor. But when it comes down to it, most people don't necessarily know the ins and outs of this time period.
So it's taking place about 200 years before Phantom Menace.
Yes.
Yeah, this is really an unprecedented time that we've seen in the films or even shows or really anything Star Wars as far as like video content.
Yes. As far as we talk about the funnel of Star Wars, where we have the movies on the top, then we get the TV shows and the video games, and that's the books, and then it's the comics. That's kind of the funnel that we see in Star Wars. When we look at that funnel, this will be the first time that many people are experiencing this era. And this era is unique because, and the benefit of it is to Star Wars Acolyte, they don't necessarily have to weigh themselves down with cameos or Leonardo DiCaprio pointing memes where you just like this character shows up and you're like, oh, it's that person. I feel like it's going to benefit from that, where it has net new characters and a net new time frame and a new story where we're seeing something from the darker side's perspective.
Right.
I want to talk about this. I want to, talk about some of the ways that they could, if they wanted to, put cameos in. And then I want to talk about why it's probably not a good idea for Acolyte.
Fair enough.
There's two characters that I'm pretty sure are around during this time frame. Chewbacca, I think. But who I know for sure, Yoda.
Yeah.
Yoda's like 900 years old. And Hu Yang honestly could also be in this time frame because he's like 1,000 years old. So he's older than Yoda is.
That is true.
So those are the characters that I know for sure could be involved in this time frame in some way.
I would be very curious, like what kind of Siths we could be seeing at this time frame. I'm not as familiar with that scope of time, especially with bad guys. But it would be interesting if they do pull anything from
like
Legends
Darth Plagueis or something like that.
Or,
I wonder. I don't even know if Darth Plagueis is old enough. There's not a whole lot when it comes to Darth Plagueis that we know for sure. And I don't know if there's much in terms of canon when it comes to Darth Plagueis. So there's a lot of ambiguity there when we look at the dark side or the darker side. And I think that's the key part here when we look at the dark side is we aren't going to see Siths necessarily in Star Wars Acolyte. We're more than likely going to see Dark Jedi, or more like Balin almost, where you have characters that don't necessarily know the strict like beliefs of the Jedi or the Sith, but are fulfilling that like anger path or that like fear path.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how they play with that, because it does seem like it's still focused on the Jedi, but just from kind of a character who's going away from it, or some sort of the opposite spectrum of it or something. It's going to be really interesting. So as far as characters that we probably might see, I could definitely see Yoda being featured in here,
or at least mentioned by name. I think and I think that's all that fans necessarily need. I think we need more subtlety when we look at fan service when it comes to Star Wars in particular. But there's also the other alternative that you can look at. If you really want cameos, you could have families of Star Wars characters.
Okay.
If it is X character, you could have it be their father father, a great grandfather, or whatever. Have like the last name be the thing that's familiar, not necessarily the character itself. And Harry Potter does this a lot, where you see the family lineages throughout the flashbacks to like the Order of the Phoenix, as well as the Death Eaters, to the characters that like Ron and Hermione and Harry are all interacting with.
How would that work, though? Because if they're not supposed to be, like, connected, or they're not supposed to have
Jedi
attachments...
themselves, but most of the Jedi come from families. Like, Ahsoka was a Force sensitive that was raised in a family and then got to a certain age and was...
Taken from them.
Yes.
Right.
Not necessarily taken from them, but technically, yes.
Pretty much taken.
Yeah. Given freely, kind of.
Kinda.
Yeah. There's a lot of controversy that you could go into, and you could probably make a big point about how the Jedi are evil just from that one bit there. But we're not getting into that today.
Yeah. Okay.
That could be the path. Like the parents, grandparents of this Jedi or whatever. I wouldn't necessarily see them as the Jedi themselves, but someone, a character in this world.
I think that would be interesting. I don't know how effective that would be.
It definitely would get the theories going, though.
Oh, for sure. Oh, my. Just because I don't feel like we know many names. Like, you do, but you don't. Like, Star Wars is kind of funny in that way, where it's always been so focused on the Skywalkers and, like, that we don't really...
It's a pretty small galaxy when you boil it down, really.
Yeah.
I wanted to set this up to basically, like, don't do this.
Yeah, please, maybe don't.
I don't think we need cameos in this era. I think it's time to let the Mandoverse be the Mandoverse and have that be the cameo-filled, like, Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme-filled show.
Yeah.
And then have, like, Andor and Acolyte be these shows that like take it a little bit further, don't necessarily do the exact thing that you would expect a Star Wars thing to do. And I think there's a lot of potential for this growth throughout Star Wars to be a little bit broader than they have been so far.
Yeah, it's time for us to see that it's a galaxy.
Yes.
And not just a little world of other worlds, you know?
That's a really good way to put it. Because we haven't seen Star Wars be a galaxy. We've seen it be very small, really.
Yeah.
Like, this one family and all of their friends. That's the Star Wars that we've seen.
Yeah.
And that's it. Obviously, this is specifically to the movies and specifically to, like, the TV shows. Obviously, if you look in the books, then it's a much broader galaxy. But we don't have that when you look at the TV shows. Most of the TV shows are very closely tied together.
Yeah. And
then you have the movies, which is the Skywalker saga. You're not going to leave the Skywalkers.
Yeah, for the Skywalkers. So, yeah. This is the chance for them to be like, no, Star Wars is a large, blossoming thing. Like, it could be so much. And I think we should just get a little taste of that here.
I would love to see more of it. I think that's what the potential of something like Acolyte is to be like almost the middle ground between Andor and The Mandalorian, fleshing out this new time period, giving it a new perspective. And I think we can have like the Acolyte be a series of seasons alongside, almost like just next to each other, Ahsoka and the Mandoverse series. I think that's where the future could be, where you have this one show and you have this other. They're definitely like filling in those different blocks.
Yeah, I do hope that it does fill in the gaps between Andor and what we have in like Mandalorian and all those other shows. There is like a stark difference between the two, and there's a lot of space that needs to be filled up in between to bridge those gaps. And I think it does seem like it's got the maturity, but also the potential fun just to be able to bridge that.
The just amount of Jedi that they have. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good.
I agree 100%. But let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, check out our podcast. May the Force be with you.